Welcome to Bible Answers Now. Have you ever noticed how different Bible translations sometimes interpret the same verse in seemingly different ways? One verse that often raises questions is Numbers 11, verse 25. The King James Version says, "They prophesied and did not cease," while the NIV states, "They prophesied but did not do it again." So, why do these translations interpret the verse so differently? Let's dive into it. Numbers 11:25 occurs during a pivotal moment in Israel's journey through the wilderness. The context is that Moses had been overwhelmed by the burden of leading such a vast and often rebellious nation. God had instructed Moses to gather 70 elders to help him bear the weight of leadership. These elders were empowered by the Spirit of God, and they began to prophesy. But here's the question. Was their prophesying a one-time event, or did it mark the start of an ongoing prophetic ministry? Let's start by understanding the original Hebrew text of this verse. The phrase in question, "and did not cease," versus "but did not do it again," hinges on a subtle difference in the interpretation of the verb used in the original language. The Hebrew word yasaf can mean to add or to continue, suggesting two possible interpretations. Either the elders prophesied once and never again, or they prophesied continuously. This ambiguity leads to the differing translations we see today. The King James Version, which says they prophesied and did not cease, interprets the event as one that continued without interruption. The translators of the KJV likely believed that this act of prophesying was ongoing. This fits with the idea that the Spirit of God equipped these elders not just for a moment, but for a long-term role in guiding the people of Israel. On the other hand, the NIV translation, which says they prophesied but did not do it again, takes a more restrictive view, interpreting the event as a one-time occurrence. The NIV seems to suggest that while these men were empowered by the Spirit to prophesy, it was not a continuous role they maintained. The prophecy was a singular event to empower and encourage Moses in a specific moment of need. So, which interpretation is correct? The truth is, both are possible. The Hebrew language allows for this kind of ambiguity, and both translations have a legitimate claim based on how the verb is understood. Regardless of the specific translation, however, the key takeaway is clear. God equipped the leaders to help Moses with his task of leading Israel. This moment highlights how the Holy Spirit empowers God's people to fulfill their roles and responsibilities. Let's look at a few more passages that illuminate this theme of God empowering leaders for specific purposes. In Joel 2:28-29, God promises to pour out his Spirit on all people, saying, "Your sons and daughters will prophesy, your old men will dream dreams, your young men will see visions." This passage, quoted later by Peter in Acts 2, reinforces the idea that God's Spirit empowers his people, sometimes in ways that are unexpected or temporary, for his purposes. In Acts 2, we see the Holy Spirit being poured out on the disciples at Pentecost, and they begin speaking in tongues and prophesying. This moment was also a unique event, but it marked the beginning of the disciples' ministry, empowering them to spread the gospel. Similarly, in Numbers 11, verse 25, whether the elders prophesying was a one-time event or the start of an ongoing ministry, it still represents the moment when God provided the spiritual resources needed to accomplish his work. Ephesians 4:11-12 reminds us that God gives different gifts to the church, including apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers, to equip the believers for ministry. The diversity in these gifts shows that God's empowering work takes many forms, often in specific seasons and situations. What does this mean for us today? It's a powerful reminder that God equips his people for the tasks he calls them to, whether that's for a specific moment or an ongoing ministry. And just like the elders in Numbers 11, we can trust that God's Spirit empowers us to carry out his will, even when it seems overwhelming. So, how can we apply this? Perhaps you're feeling uncertain about your role or wondering if you're equipped for a task God has laid before you. Take comfort in the fact that God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. Whether your prophesying is a momentary act of encouragement to someone in need or a lifelong calling to teach or serve, God will give you the strength and wisdom you need. If you're unsure, pray about it, seek his guidance, and trust that the Holy Spirit will empower you to fulfill the task. Numbers 11:25 reminds us of God's faithful provision for his people. Just as he gave Moses the help he needed, he will provide for you in your time of need. Reflect on this. When has God provided unexpected help or strength in your own life? How can you be a part of his empowering work in the world today? I hope this answer sheds light on the differing translations and encourages you in your walk with God. If this answer resonated with you, please share it with someone who might appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below with your thoughts or any questions you may have. May God bless you and your loved ones abundantly.